channel. My name is Tolu. I'm a Christian dating coach and I specialize in showing you how to go from single to married in a year. Now, if you want to work with me one-on-one, make sure to click the link in my bio and the first tab to apply for my Dating to Marry program, where I show you how to get into the right relationship that will lead to marriage in a year. Okay, so I wanted to talk about signs you're falling for his potential. And when I say potential, I mean what you think he can do for you in terms of maybe he's your husband, maybe he's somebody you can build a relationship with that will lead to marriage. Maybe you think he's going to be a great father to your kids. Maybe you think he's going to be someone you can build a home with. That's just potential, as long as you haven't actually seen any substance to it. And we're going to dive deeper. So if you have any questions around this, drop it in the question box. But the thing about potential is it's not real. And, being a Christian dating coach for years, I've seen a lot of Christian women just date potential. And what it looks like is you've waited so long for marriage that any man that even mentions or looks remotely like the kind of man you've been waiting for, you put all these identities on top of his head, basically. So you start ascribing to him that he's your husband just because he says he's a Christian. You start assuming that he wants to settle down just because he says he's looking for a relationship. You start assuming he's the one God sent for you. God sent to you because he's the first guy that you've seen in a long time that you like that also happens to go to church. And all of that is just fantasy. It's based on the potential you've created in your head. And another way a lot of you have fed potential is by dating men that you've settled for. So because you're not used to seeing men you find attractive, that are interested in you and match the values you want, the first man that even remotely resembles that kind of person, you assume is your husband. And as a result, a lot of you open yourselves to be taken advantage of. You open yourself up for the wrong kind of relationships. You open yourself up to be disrespected, because it's these same kinds of men that will take advantage of your expectations, lead you on for years, give you high hopes about the kind of marriage that they want, but in reality you can see no evidence of. You will find that years and months even have gone past and you feel like you're stuck on the same spot with this person. You will find that you don't know anything about them in detail, in substance. You will find that a lot of the expectations you have around that man have just stayed as expectations for the duration of time that you've known him. Nothing material has come out of it. Whether you met him in church, whether it was through a friend, whether it was a referral, whether it was online, it's really irrelevant. And this is why, like with my clients, it's not about where you meet the guy. You can meet men anywhere. You can meet your husband anywhere. You could meet him online. You could meet him in person. You could meet him through a friend, a family member. You could meet him literally walking down the street. It's not about where you meet him. It's more about the kind of men that you are making yourself available to. So if you find that you're always attracting men that have potential but no substance, that is not a location problem. That is a problem with how you vet. Okay, that's a problem with how you date. The work I like to do with my clients is understanding that it's not so much the men you attract, but the men you entertain that will determine the quality of men you begin to attract. So if you're entertaining unserious men, you will continue to attract unserious men because your standards will always be that low. So you will never attract a man with higher standards. It's kind of like saying if you're trying to apply for a job in Google, you should give the same level of application and strategy as the startup down the street. You're not going to get that job at Google and you're not going to get close to it because it requires a different set of strategy for you to be able to reach that kind of company with your resume. It's the same with dating. If you want a guy that has certain specific qualities that you're looking for in a partner and a husband, you're going to need to date in a way that aligns with that desire that you have. You cannot say you want to be with that kind of man and you're entertaining unserious men, because it just means your standards are too low to attract that quality of man. So when I'm working with my clients, part of the work that I do initially, is just really understanding where exactly are you in your dating process, because as women, you will go through all these stages. You may not necessarily, find yourself just dating good men. You may have to go through the learning curve of being taken advantage of. Some of you may have married that kind of man. Some of you will have been in relationships with men that took you for granted for years. That's just your learning curve, but you don't have to stay there. And the problem that I see with when you are dating potential and you're falling for his potential is you've attached too much to the fantasy in your head that you're not paying attention to the actual fact of the relationship. So that's why, when we start our work together, my initial zone of focus is on really helping you date with facts instead of fantasy, because some of you are in relationships that never materialized. You're dating a man that doesn't see you as his wife. You've moved in with a guy that has no intention of marrying you. You've spent years and years with a man that doesn't see you as his wife. And the truth is, if you just look at his actions, you will be able to see exactly that. But a lot of you have this, you've built up this idea in your head, and that becomes your own stronghold. Then you find it difficult to let go. You are scared to start over. You are afraid to let that man go that is not even really in your life in the first place. But yeah, that's how it happens. So like in my programs, my concentration is on really making sure that my clients know exactly how to date pattern, not potential. Because when you're dating pattern, you're dating predictability, you're dating substance, you're dating proof. Okay, you're dating based on proof. It's not fantasy. It's not based on his past. It's not based on what he used to do or how he used to treat you. When you're dating patterns, you're dating with the present in mind, and you're dating with proof. And so it's predictable. So when I'm working with my clients, our focus is on really making sure that you're dating men that fit the pattern that you want, that have shown you proof of their interest, and that you can predictably say, this is how they're showing up for you. And that is how you're going to meet your husband. Okay. And by husband, I mean a man that God desires for you, that you can build a home with, that you can change your generational experience with, that will accept you fully for who you are, flaws and all. That's the kind of man I'm talking about, not the one that you're entertaining and you're trying to build him up and you're trying to lift him up and you're just settling for, and we both know you're not attracted to, that has sort of been dragging you along for years. That's not your husband. No matter how long you stay with that man, he is not your husband. So it's important. And the scripture that comes to mind, remember when Jesus was talking to the woman at the well, and he was like, you've had 5 husbands and the man that you're currently with is not your husband. So it's just that level of truth that all these men that you keep trying to filter into the position of being the man of your dreams are just not qualified for that position. However you want to dress them up, they're just not qualified for it. So that's why, when I'm working with my clients, and it's a really hard mirror to look at. I've seen it with clients again and again. It's a really hard mirror to look at, but you do have to look at it in terms of you're just not dating to get married. And it's part of the work I do with my clients, in helping them to get over that instinct to settle. A lot of you have it. I've seen it with Christian women a lot. That instinct to settle in terms of, let me just manage him. I'm not physically attracted to him, but at least he's talking to me. I do like him. I do think he's attractive, but he doesn't give me the kind of attention I want, but at least I like him. You always find the way to settle with and that is your problem with every single man that comes your way. So, when I'm working with my clients, the work is on letting go of that instinct to settle. It's nearly become like a protective mechanism for a lot of you because you're just afraid to stand alone. And that's why I say a lot of you are just doing singleness wrong. Singleness is a point of strength in terms of helping you vet men correctly. When you know how to use your singleness and you know how to date with your singleness, men will smell your value before they even see you. So what I mean by that is you will carry a different kind of scent. And I've seen it with clients again and again, and just showing them how to lead with their value. Like for instance, one of my clients that comes to mind, she met her spouse, when she was at work, even though that guy has always been there. It's not like he suddenly came out of the woodwork. It's not like they hadn't interacted before, but she was dating differently. She changed her approach. She stopped settling. We worked on her ability to lead with her value. We worked on her ability to stop entertaining situationships. That completely changed the way that man saw her. And that turned out to be her husband, and they were married within a year. Or another client that was just dating men that just, they don't, and some of you are in this category, they didn't mind being in a relationship with her. They took her to the family functions, they planned trips with her, they came, they went to events together, but they just will not discuss marriage. They will not get engaged to her. So she was basically a placeholder. A placeholder is just a woman that is occupying space during the duration of time that a man is trying to find the woman that he actually wants to be with. And a lot of you are in that kind of situation. And it was just about helping her to understand that the longer she stayed in those situations, the harder it would be for her to actually meet her husband. And of course, there's a work to that we do when we work together. So helping her to release those anxious reasons that are making her entertain nonsense in essence. And she met her husband shortly after. Now she's married and she's a mother of 2 amazing children. And it was just important for her to stop dating in the way she had been dating for so long, because that clearly wasn't working. So when we talk about, signs you're falling for his potential, I just wanted to kind of give a broad overview of what that may look like through your experience. But one of the ways to know that you're falling for his potential, and if you have any questions for me, and I'm glad this is helpful to you guys, thank you for your comments. For those watching live, thank you. I'm glad this is helpful. If you have any questions, just drop it in the question box and tap the hearts. But here's the thing. And when I say question box, because this is going to go on my other platforms, I'm talking to those that are watching me live, okay? So here are signs that you can look out for when you're falling for his potential. You will notice it feels like communication is one-sided. So what I mean by that is you keep trying to communicate, you keep trying to get closer, but it's like you can't go beyond a certain point. And you feel like you've been at the same point with this person for months and months, and in some cases years. You don't know what's wrong. You're struggling to put into words your expectations of this man because he's just not meeting them, and you're starting to sound a bit like a nag because you feel like you're saying the same things but you're not getting a different result. And the problem with that is you are changing, okay? So what I mean by that is it's kind of like a plant that isn't being watered. You're slowly starting to wither. So in other words, your expectations are dying and dying and dying, and you're settling for less and less and less. It could be as simple as you wanted him to be calling you every day, which is a very basic request, by the way, because some of you, I've spoken to a couple of you that have applied to work with me. Some of you assume that talking to a guy every day is fine. It is not. If he's interested, there's no reason why he can't talk to you every single day. Men's level of interest increases with time. It doesn't stabilize and it doesn't decrease. It does find a rhythm, but it should be increasing, not decreasing, okay? But you'll notice communication is at a standstill. And that just means that you're starting to date his potential. There's a potential for him to communicate with you that you're hoping will happen, but it's just not happening. And this is why within the first 30 days of my work with clients, I like to focus on how they communicate their desires with men. Because a lot of you assume, he'll figure it out. He's not going to figure anything out. You're going to need to tell a man exactly what you want, and you're going to need to explain to him exactly what you're looking for. But there's a way, there's an art, there's a skill that you use to do that. You don't want to sound like a man. You don't want to sound dictating or demanding. So when I'm working with my clients, it's about learning to show them how to communicate. It's about them learning to understand the language of communication that inspires a man to act. Making their requests known in a way that supports their femininity and shows the man that they are confident in their value. But a lot of you choose the road of silence, and you are silently suffering as a result. You're in a relationship or a situationship, you don't even know what's going on. You're not particularly sure where this is leading or what's going to happen next. You're constantly doubting his level of interest, and you are just staying mute. That's you dating his potential. That's not a relationship, okay? So what I like to do is, like, for example, when I'm working with clients that are in situationships before they start working with me, we clear that up within the first 2 weeks, because it's really important for there to be clarity. Okay, you need to clearly know where you stand in a man's level of interest. There should be no iota of doubt in your mind. And this is why vetting is so important. Vetting isn't just about what a man does, it's about what he's not doing. It's about how he responds to what you say. It's about how he acts. It's beyond the tangible points of information you're getting. It's about discernment. It's about learning to match what the Lord is telling you with what you are seeing. So it involves it's a very intimate process, and you need to know how that looks like for you. A lot of you get ghosted because you don't know how to vet. You are getting taken advantage of because you don't trust your instincts. You are dating men that are just giving you potential because you don't think the kind of partner you want is available to you. Meanwhile, the actual truth is just you're not available to him. You're not dating in a way that will support that man actually having room to step into your life. That's why within the first 30 days, I like to show my clients how to communicate their desires, because communication is the first point of vetting. Think about it. Before you apply for a job, they communicate what they are looking for to you. You don't just apply for a job that is not available to apply for. Or before you go to the supermarket, you have a very clear idea of what you're looking for, what you want to make. So there needs to be a starting point of communication. So if you're struggling to vet, one of the reasons is you aren't communicating your desires, and you're not doing it in a way that is tangible and that can be consistently referenced as a point of your character. So what I mean by that is, it's one thing to tell a guy, if you keep taking me for granted, I'm no longer going to be, this can't work between us. And he does it again and you are still there. So obviously that isn't going to communicate a good character reference. So what you're actually telling him is, don't listen to me when I say things like that. That's all you said. That's all you communicated. So when I talk about communicating your desires, it's really important that you do what you say you're going to do. Because that will make it easier for you to attract men that have pattern, not potential. Because the irony of what I just said is, a lot of you, in doing that, you're communicating the potential of what you can do, as opposed to giving him a clear pattern of reference to see that this is actually who you are. So it's really important that your communication follows a consistent pattern of reference. Like, he knows, not only in how you relate with him, but in just how you live your life. Like you're a woman that sticks by her principles and, has very clear standards of reference that he can see through your daily point of interaction with people that is important to you. But a lot of you, your communication style, all that you are communicating is, I'm available, I'm ready to settle, I'm doing whatever you want. That's what you're actually telling him, and that's why that guy doesn't take you seriously. So when I'm working with my clients, within the first 30 days, the focus is on really getting clear on their communication style, because once you start working with me, you're going to actively start meeting men in person, in your online, in your routine, and through that actual experience of coming in contact with men, I clean up your communication style. And how I help you do that is by making sure you know what feels natural to you, finding your own language of communication. Like, for example, as everybody has a different voice, everybody sounds differently when they communicate, because I'm seeing a question about how to communicate in a feminine way. You need to find your own femininity. You need to find your own style of femininity. I always say, think of 3 women, whether you're taking the women from scripture. Deborah was different from Ruth, who was different from Esther, who was different from Rebecca, who was different from Leah and Rachel, and so on and so forth. These were all women in scripture, and they were very different. Or choose any cultural reference, like choose any woman that is in the narrative of the global culture, from Beyonce to Michelle Obama to Oprah to whoever else. These are all women that are feminine, but it comes across differently. So you need to know your own feminine style. So that's how you're going to communicate in a feminine way. There's no template for this is how you say something. It has to suit your style for it to be natural and consistent. And for each and every one of my clients, it looks different. That's why, like, in my program, I show my clients how to find their own style of femininity, because what one man will find feminine, another man will not. So you need to know what is feminine to you, so that you're actually attracting men that align with the way you express yourself as a woman. Okay. And it's really important that when you are dating for a relationship, you know how to express yourself in that way, so that you know a man that allows you to rest in your femininity. A lot of you are dating like men because you haven't met a guy that actually lets you rest in your femininity. A lot of you are dating like men in terms of you're the one that is the financial provider of the relationship. You're the one that is always planning things. You're the one always making creating a schedule for how to see. You're the problem solver. You're the one that is always trying to, solve any point of conflict. You have taken on the role of a man, and as a result, you don't even know how to be a woman anymore when you're interacting with men. And what happens is you start attracting unserious men that take advantage of you, men that always, try and push your boundaries. And you're going to find it very difficult to meet men that are actually masculine, comfortable to lead, and are providers as a result. So you want to know what communication looks like to you and how to express yourself in a feminine way that feels natural to you. And that's part of the work that I do with my clients, just in helping them to understand what does it look like for me to rest in my feminine and to actually be attracted to a man because he's showing up for me in the way I want to be supported in a relationship. And I will say this, you don't need to be in a relationship to experience a man treating you like a priority, because that's something else I've seen just in reviewing some of your applications. So what I mean by that is you don't need to be his girlfriend before he starts calling and texting you every day. You don't need to be his girlfriend before, he buys you gifts. You don't need to be his girlfriend before he starts spending time getting to know you. The title is as a result of reflecting the experience of that person. The title doesn't come before the experience. It's not like a job where they've made you senior manager, so you now start acting like a senior manager. If anything, the title is just recognizing what is already the experience that's ongoing in the relationship with that person. Speaking of which, one of the reasons you're falling for his potential and actually not dating for a real relationship is there's no clarity. You have no idea what he wants and if it aligns with what you want. And the reason for this is some of you're just too afraid to ask what you're actually interested in. And I know this because as a coach, just working with my clients and helping them to understand and be comfortable asking questions. You can ask men anything. It's more about how you ask as opposed to what you're asking. So, worked with so many clients on just getting them comfortable to the point where they can express themselves without any fear of rejection or retaliation or being taken the wrong way. But part of the reason why you're dating men of potential is because that's exactly what you do. You allow him to dictate the kind of conversations you want to have. You do not choose what exactly it is you want to know about. You're not talking to him about things that are actually of interest to you. A lot of you are just kind of responding. If he says something, you respond, but you don't necessarily interact. And as a result, you're just dating potential because you're not getting any real information on this person. And what happens is months and months will go by and you don't even know where you are headed. The relationship isn't progressing. You can't say you're in a relationship because no one has made any reference to it, because you are too scared to say anything. You will find that you don't even know where he stands, if he's interested in you or not. You know nothing about his family, his finances, his dreams, his goals, his ambitions. And even when you do, you don't know more than you knew before. That's why clarity is so important when you're dating, so that it saves you a lot of time. If you know where you are going, you can get there faster. And this applies with everything in life, whether you're traveling to a new location or you are trying out a new recipe. As long as you know where you're going, you can get there faster because you know the information to get, you know exactly where to look. But a lot of you are just entertaining men and you don't even know where you're going. You're thinking because he said, oh, I like you, and you're getting so excited because you haven't seen a man in years or months, and all the men that have been coming your way are not serious, and this one you find attractive. You're just turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to things that you should actually be paying attention to, which is why, one of the areas of focus I like to work on is making sure my clients are constantly meeting men so that they stop idolizing the idea of actually having a man be interested in them. Right? So like when I'm working with my clients, they are meeting men. They're actively meeting men. And when I say meeting men, I mean they are meeting men in their routine in person. They are meeting men online. So it doesn't become a foreign idea for a man to actually show you interest. it should be routine. It should be part of how you are actually, experiencing your day to day. You should be able to walk out of your house and actually meet someone. It shouldn't be a big deal. I remember one of my clients was telling me, because I walked through how to meet men in person with her, just using her routine. And she met like 5 guys that day. She was just talking to men, and one of the men that she met, this is a completely different scenario. Apart from the 5 guys, she met another guy and she spoke to him because she was interested in him, and they had a great conversation. Just little things like that should be a part of your day-to-day experience, so that when you actually do connect with someone, which is a point I'm going to come to shortly, when you actually do start talking to a man, you are no longer getting carried away by the idea of this man is actually giving you attention, because that is just something you experience anyway. So you're able to have clear conversations. You are able to have clear communication of what exactly it is you're looking for, and you are able to communicate your boundaries. I remember one of my other clients, I was struggling with her boundaries. And the thing is, if you struggle with your boundaries, it won't only show up in dating. You'll probably struggle with your boundaries in family relationships, in professional relationships. You'll struggle with your boundaries in many other places. So as a result of helping my clients to adjust the way they date, it has actually also reflected in the way they have friendships, in the way they show up professionally. It has actually led to them getting opportunities with executives at their organizations, or changing the nature and style of their relationships, giving more clarity and rhythm to family relationships that they have. Because once you are able to have clarity, it brings a lot of things into focus. So you're dating his potential when things are not in focus. It feels like things are airy. It feels like things don't have direction. So someone asks, how long should one clarify direction in talk? How soon should one clarify direction? It's something that is from the beginning. There's no reason why you should be talking to a man, for example, that clearly doesn't want a relationship. What's the point of that? Why are we talking? It doesn't make sense. When I say doesn't want a relationship, I mean anything from he's not looking for anything serious to he's not ready to, he's not in a place in his life where he's even thinking about a partner. You have to know how to read men beyond what they are telling you. You have to be able to pay attention to what they are not saying and how they're acting and so on and so forth. So it's not like you enter something and then you wake up one day and realize it's the wrong thing. Within a 90-day timeline, you should be in a relationship with that person. Within the first 2 weeks, you should know if both of you have enough of value alignments to continue exploring, getting to know each other, and going on dates. It's that quick. That's how I help my clients. So because some of you find yourself in a talking stage that has been going on for 3+ months, that thing is not going to materialize into a relationship. I'll just tell you now. And if it does, it's not going to be a very functional one, and it's not going to last very long. You want to make sure you're dating somebody that already knows where they are going. And it doesn't mean they are heading towards marriage, because a lot of my clients, because of the way in which they are naturally showing up dating, they are also attracting and connecting with men that are deciding and desiring marriage as a result of meeting them. And for some men, it just works that way. It's not every man that wants to get married that will know before he meets you. Some men, when they meet you, because they desire to be with you, the ball finally drops for them in that category of wanting to settle down. So you need to know how to identify that, and that's part of the work I do with you when we work together one-on-one. Another way you know you're dating potential is the connection is limited. It just feels very surface level. So what I mean by that is you have limited information about this person, limited contact. It feels like the conversation is very surface level. It doesn't feel like there's very much intention on his part to dig a bit deeper and get to know you more. And on the flip side of this, let me tell you, you don't want to be dating men that are intense either, okay? Because, and this is something I warn my clients about and I walk them through. So you also don't want to be dating men that are emotionally unintelligent or emotionally excessive. So what I mean by that is they just met you, they're asking you for a relationship. They just met you, they're trying to dominate your time. You really need to have very good, clear lines of communication and pace the way you connect with men to make yourself available for a healthy connection, because some of you are just jumping into things you have no business entering in the first place. So you're dating for potential when connection is limited, or when connection is manufactured. In other words, he's trying to manufacture a connection that hasn't had room to breathe. So that looks like love bombing, that looks like manipulation, that looks like gaslighting. You need to know how to pick up these things without him telling you, because nobody will say, I'm love bombing you. You need to just know what it looks like based on the signs that you're seeing as you're dating. So, my work with clients is really on being able to understand how to read emotional signals. So when I say emotional signals, I mean, is this healthy? Is this toxic? Is this a red flag, or is it a green one? Is this something that I need more time with, or is this something that's clear enough for me to work with? That's how you start dating based on fact. Problem is, so many of you are not dating enough men. You're just not talking to enough men. So you don't have the experience. And you're going off fantasy, and some of you are taking advice from people that don't even understand your experience. People that don't understand what it feels like to be dating again after going through a failed marriage, or don't have the experience to advise you on dating in your late 30s, or don't necessarily understand your struggles and your journey. And that's why I like to focus on every single client's specific blueprint. So I say your dating path is unique to the path God has called you to. And it has looked different for every single one of my clients. However, they've all met their spouses, gotten into relationships, their entire process looks different because it is tied to their path. So my work is on just making sure you know your path, because that will help you know where you need to be connecting with men, what you need to be paying attention to, what it looks like when you're looking at the real thing, or when you're looking at a man that is just trying to lead you on. That way, you will be dating for a real relationship that will actually get you married, as opposed to entering one relationship that is heading nowhere, or talking to a man that has no intention of dating you long term. Then something else I will say is consistency. Okay, consistency speaks volumes. So you're dating potential if you're just dating with lack of consistency. And a good way to know this is, are you always making excuses for anything? Are you making excuses for his behavior? Are you making excuses for his lack of attention? Are you making excuses for his lack of interest? Are you making excuses for the way he shows up in your life? Because that means there's something very wrong that you're trying to rationalize, okay? So consistency is a good way to know if you're dating potential or if you're actually dating the real thing. You may experience the fact that he's not consistent at all. He could call you today and you may not hear from him for another 2 weeks. The problem, however, is when he does reach out, you're available. And I don't know why you people do that, because the thing with that is you're communicating you have no value. You're communicating that it is fine for a man to reach out to you however he pleases. You're communicating that your time isn't valuable. You're communicating that you're available for whatever. It doesn't matter if you tell him, oh, that's wrong, you shouldn't have done that. That isn't going to land. All you're communicating is, when you do disappear and come back, I will still talk to you. That's literally all he's hearing. So you need to learn to be unavailable to men that are not showing up the way you want. Okay. So, inside my programs, I have very clear lines of guidelines for my clients, so that they know the timeline to be talking to men for, when it's time to release a connection, when it's time to review a connection, or when it's time for them to to dive deeper into a connection, so that way when they are dating, they don't feel. And when you date this way, you are not led by your feelings. You're actually dating based on facts. So through this process, my clients have learned how to date based on how the man is actually showing up in their life, as opposed to how they feel about him, because your feelings at this point are just irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you think he's the best thing. If he doesn't respect your time, doesn't give you the requisite amount of attention and interest, that just is not your husband. It doesn't matter how much you care about him or like him. The fact is that is just not your person. So part of the work that I do with my clients is on learning to face facts, to understand when they're actually looking at a clear prospect. Because the more clear you get with knowing what it looks like to date the real thing, the easier, the more visible you will be for the real thing. The more visible you'll be to your husband, the more visible you'll be to men that are actually interested in intentionally pursuing you. And I support you through this entire process. It's not like you'll be doing it by yourself. I've helped my clients get out of situationships, relationships that weren't serving them, help them how to navigate, how to tell men what they want, how to, navigate, sharing their expectations in the dating process, and so on and so forth, because that's how you learn what it looks like to actually be available and visible to the kind of man you can marry, and that's how they meet their spouses. The last thing I will say, and if you have any questions, drop it in the question box and tap the hearts if this has been useful to you. But the last thing I'll say about this is, you are dating potential if you are constantly compromising. Compromising isn't something you should be doing at the beginning of getting to know a guy. You shouldn't be compromising at all. He should meet you exactly where you are. So it's something I teach my clients to do, because a lot of you have compromised. Some of you, you've compromised with the men you've chosen to marry. You've compromised with the guy you spent the last 2 years of your life with. You've compromised with the man that you moved in with for 5+ years. You've compromised with the man you're currently talking to that you have no idea where it's heading. You've compromised with the guy that you're currently texting that we both know is not giving you the requisite level of attention that you want. The problem is, if you're compromising too early, that thing is not going to work. It's not going to work. The reason being, it means that you are overcompensating. So you're overcompensating for something that requires equal amount of effort. If you're compromising in terms of your values, that means that that person obviously doesn't align with your values. If you're compromising in terms of how much you talk and see, that means that obviously that person isn't as interested in you as you are in them. And that is actually going to be where that relationship will fail and what will cause it not to work. So when I'm working with my clients, I'm really clear with them that we do not compromise at the beginning, because there's no point. It's just not going to work. I show them how to make sure that we are actually testing instead for the communicating your desires, clarity, and making sure that you're making room for connection and consistency. Because when you do those things, compromise just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, because in doing those things, you're actually making room for the experience that you want in dating. And when you start dating that way, you're no longer dating on potential, because all these things require patterns. Communication requires a pattern. Clarity requires a pattern. In other words, we need to talk, we need to know where we're going, we need a focus. Connection requires a pattern. We need to see, we need to be in each other's experiences. Consistency requires a pattern. You cannot fake any of these things, because they require clear points of reference. But compromise you can fake. And what I mean by that is, because you're overcompensating, you will constantly be making excuses for them. It means that you're accepting their shortcomings in one way, shape, or form. They can give you all sorts of excuses. Oops, sorry, I had to cancel last minute because something came up at work. Sorry, I couldn't call you for the last 3 days because I got hung up on this, that, and the other. Those are all excuses. So you can't fall for potential if you keep compromising. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I wanted to share. And when we work together one-on-one, and if you have any questions for me about my one-on-one program, feel free to send me a DM or send me an email, whichever is easier for you. But the thing is, my focus is on just making sure you are actually dating to get married. We're not doing any fluff, okay? So what I mean by that is, you're not talking to any men you do not find attractive. You're not entertaining men that aren't taking you seriously. You're not staying in that situationship just because it's comfortable. No. I help you get through those things quickly. I help you out of the situationship, out of the relationship that isn't feeling safe. Clarify if this is the person that you are with that is right for you. Show you how to communicate with men effectively, how to make yourself visible to the kind of men that you do actually want and that you can have conversations with. Show you how to communicate your desires, and we do all of that within the first 30 days so that over the next 5 months, you are set up and visible to the kind of men that you can date, commit to, and eventually marry. So that's what we do one-on-one. My one-on-one program is 6 months, and the goal is to get you married within a year, going through my 6-month process. We work together every single week on Zoom calls with WhatsApp chat support daily. Now, if you want to work with me one-on-one, you can click the link in my bio and first tab to apply. And when I review your application and you're the right fit, we'll have a conversation, and then we begin our work together to get you to the point of marriage within a year. Okay, so do we have any questions? I'm just going to summarize what I've said, and then if we don't have any questions, I'll just end the chat. But if you are dating based on potential, you're just not gonna, you're delaying your marriage. Let me put it like that. It's not spiritual. You don't have any enemies working against you. You are doing it on your own. So you want to date based on pattern. You want to date based on facts, not your feelings. You want to actually have tangible proof that this person is showing up in a predictable way that you can rely on to show you that they are, in fact, interested in pursuing an intimate relationship with you. And you do that with communication. I see, how do you approach men out in public? It really just depends on the environment. You can make eye contact, you can smile, you can say hi. It's not really difficult. You just need to get comfortable with the context of that. If you see a guy that you think is interesting when you are at an event, you can say hi, you can talk about the event, you can ask him a couple of questions, you maintain eye contact, you smile. It's not hard. But a lot of you, your problem is you overthink this, you are afraid of rejection, you make things up in your head, and as a result you don't do anything. And it's so interesting because when I get my clients comfortable with just expressing interest, it immediately increases their visibility. So what I mean by that is they start meeting men at the train station, on the flights, at the park, at the gym, and so on and so forth. Because you just have to get comfortable with the fact that to be able to meet someone, you have to also be willing to make yourself approachable to them. So that's not something that's difficult. Just think about how you would approach a woman that you thought you were interested in that you don't really know, and do the same thing. It's just this time it's a guy. But yeah, work on communication, work on clarity, connection. Be consistent and do not compromise. When you learn to do this in a way that feels feminine, natural, simple to you, dating becomes predictable. And that's how I help my clients know, okay, even if, I can literally help them predict just based on data gotten from the progress we've made in my program, that, you're going to attract a man in the next 2 weeks. You're going to attract the kind of man you want in the next 3 conversations or whatever, because they now start having a pattern that actually reflects the kind of men they want. A lot of you've messed up your data because you've been talking to men you have no business talking to. You've been in relationships you have no business being in. Some of you are in talking stages that have lasted 3 months plus. By the way, no talking stage should even last that long. Within 3 months, if that man is in your life for 90 days, he should be your boyfriend. And he should be wanting to be your boyfriend before the 90 days. He should have brought it up roughly around week 6 or so. Because men are extremely intentional. Okay? So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. If you want to work with me one-on-one to get yourself into the right relationship and married within a year, click the link in my bio on first tab. I'll talk to you all again soon. Bye.